This summer, big box retailers are seeking a massive big government handout from Congress paid for by consumers. Mega retailers are trying to trick Congress into enacting harmful credit card routing legislation, falsely claiming that it will help small businesses. In reality, this big box bill would transfer billions from consumers to retailers, while eliminating popular credit card rewards programs, weakening cybersecurity protections, and reducing access to credit. So tell Congress to stop this big box bait and switch and oppose credit card routing legislation. Visit stopthebigboxbaitandswitch.com to learn more.
The 2024 Republican presidential primary field is taking shape.
The battle lines are becoming clearer, and so is the field of candidates.
Is the odds-on favorites, if you look at the polling, still Trump versus Biden?
That seems to be it, but it's just way too early to tell.
I'm more angry now, and I'm more committed now than I ever was.
Big challenge for these candidates is going to be how do they navigate Donald Trump? And how do they navigate Ron DeSantis?
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
Well, welcome to a special episode of the Ruthless Variety Program. Fellas, this is a very big week for us.
Yeah.
Lots happening in the news, lots happening with the program.
Yeah. I mean, it just feels like we've got a nice little rhythm going. You know?
Well, it's always exciting to spend time with our audience. And I think the more that we do that, the happier they are, the happier we are.
That's right. That's right. Very well said, John. I've always said that you've been thoughtful like that.
They're the only thing that really matters here.
That's exactly right. Free hat for you.
Thank you.
All right. So, look, this is a big show. Obviously, we've got to cover the big news, which is Trump saying on Truth that he has received a letter from the Department of Justice saying that he, in fact, is a target of a new potential indictment, this one dealing with January 6th. Mm-hmm. So we'll cover that. And we got a very, very important guest today.
That's right.
This is going to be former Vice President Mike Pence. Comes to us with our special presidential series that is helpfully sponsored by our good friends in the natural gas and oil industry over at API. I think that this is a great interview. You get a nice texture for him, his thought process, why he's running, in a way that you're not going to get anywhere else, frankly.
Yeah.
It's as relaxed as you can get somebody, right? I mean, he's at home with us. He had fun. I think we had talked about some important stuff. You could tell where he wanted to go, where he didn't want to go. Anyway, I found it fascinating.
I thought it was a great interview, and specifically, I'm not going to spoil it, but like, there was one discussion that we got to that was just so genuine and heartfelt. And it's a very important discussion and topic that hasn't gotten the coverage I think deserves.
Yep.
But it should be a big part of this election.
A big part indeed. I would be remiss if I also didn't mention that are we still open for business on tickets in Iowa, or have we closed that down?
Well, we're going to have to close it down pretty soon. So this really is like last call.
This is last call.
It's last call.
Last call.
RuthlessIowa.com. Get your tickets. We're in Des Moines, August 10th. 7 p.m. local time. It's going to be an amazing, amazing live event to kick off the Iowa State Fair. It's a big deal.
It's huge.
Totally. And we're so excited about it. Couldn't be more excited. Love for you to join us there. And, of course, we'll have some YouTube specials and things on our YouTube channel.
We'll sing, we'll dance, we'll entertain. We'll probably eat some stuff, too.
Probably eat some stuff.
Yeah, I got to pack the Tums.
Yeah, you should pack some of the liquid IVs.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe those would be a good idea for you on that.
Yeah, well, it's going to be hot. You got to stay hydrated.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's start. The New York Times reports that Trump faces possible indictment in Capitol Attack investigation. Former president, this is the New York Times, said he received a target letter in connection with a criminal investigation into the events leading up to the storming of the Capitol. It is a sign he could be indicted again by the special counsel. The special counsel, as you recall, is Jack Smith. He was the one that led the investigation into the classified documents, which he was ultimately indicted for, and we saw that full indictment, and people can take that for what it is. We've covered that ad nauseum. This one, we have actually no sense of what this is pertaining to, what the specific charges are. Tons of speculation over the last 6 months that this was an incredibly sort of important investigation that DOJ, not only DOJ was working on, but Georgia, the state of Georgia as well. I don't know if this has anything to do with, I mean, people have wildly speculated of its fundraising claims, I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows, right? I mean, we do know they've been looking into it for a long time, but the substance of which, I mean, you can make it up, but you have no clue.
Yeah.
Well, also the volume for those scoring at home. This is his third. This would be the third indictment, right?
Yeah.
And potentially not the final indictment. And so you start asking yourself the question, do these things actually add up in a way that matter to Trump voters who are his opponents are able to peel away? Is it actually going to make a difference?
Because so far it's done the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's just hardened that 30% right in Trump's pocket.
I feel like at this point it's become just such a another day, another indictment that I don't think it really moves the needle much in any direction anymore at this point. I don't know.
It certainly doesn't with a primary electorate. You're no question.
Yeah,
I mean, if anything, the first one moved it considerably to his direction. Mm-hmm. Second one didn't seem to have much of a bearing one way or another. We'll see ultimately in time whether this has any sort of water getting too heavy type thing.
I think that's key is Alvin Bragg having that completely, ridiculous one to kick this off really colored a lot of folks' opinion of
totally.
What this whole process is. They're like, okay, so this is just some ridiculous, BS kind of charges. Then every subsequent one is tainted with that of okay, well, they're clearly out to get Trump,
Totally.
Well, and then after, we've talked about it previously on the show, but after all the years of Russia, as Trump likes to call it.
Yeah.
You've inoculated Donald Trump against any criticism because the media was wrong for 5 years.
Yep.
And so I mean, I don't blame the electorate for not looking into the nuance of all these charges and reading the indictments and the evidence or whatever, because they've been lied to for so long.
Totally.
So I'm not surprised by it. But if you're not Donald Trump and you're running against him, I think you have to make an effort to make a case that this stuff is both a distraction and dangerous to our ability to win a general election.
Well, speaking of running against him and making a case, Vivek Ramaswamy came out with a response to the potential indictment. Did you guys see what he said? He said that the pending Jan 6 indictment of Trump is arguably the most dangerous of all to our constitutional republic, which, as some people point out, is quite different from what he said at the time on January 6th. He was very, very critical of President Trump at the time on January, almost in a way more critical than most other people who were in Trump's corner at the time.
Fascinating.
So very interesting to see how these guys sort of hedge when it comes to head-to-head battle. Michael was pointing out what Ronnie D was saying in response, and he sort of did both, right? Or he kind of gave him a little and took a little away.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what he was trying to do was both criticize Donald Trump the day of on January 6th for his conduct, but then also talk about the weaponization of the DOJ and sort of politicizing a legal process, right? And so what he said here is Trump's actions were wrong on January 6th. I think it was shown how he was in the White House and didn't do anything while things were going on. He should have come out more forcefully, of course, is what he said. But to try to criminalize that's a different issue entirely, and I think that we want to be in a situation where you don't have one side just constantly trying to put the other side in jail. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of trying to have his cake and eat it too a little bit, but it is nuanced and interesting there.
It is interesting, particularly because of all the disclosures, some of the Fox lawsuit stuff, some of the stuff that came out during the Jan 6 commission, where there was the sentiment that he just expressed was pretty widespread within the White House itself.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing I love about this, because there's a lot of Trump folks out there now who want to try to dunk on DeSantis, like, oh, he's criticizing Trump on January 6th. And it's like, hey, all of you did that. Like, all of them did. All of them said, hey, Trump needs to get out there and do more. He needs to stop this violence, yada, yada, yada. And now they've sort of had amnesia again here over the last couple of years. And now they want to criticize DeSantis for making this statement, which I just think is very, very funny. I mean, you look at Don Jr.'s text messages to Mark Meadows that came out in the January 6th committee. He was texting Mark Meadows saying, the president needs to do more. That one video wasn't enough.
It was universal. There was literally zero people in the camp of the president doesn't need to do anything.
You know what? He's doing great.
I mean, nobody said that.
Right.
Perhaps an oath keeper or two.
Right.
But certainly not anybody that was in that White House.
But does that rise to the level of legal culpability?
Well, I see, but here's the thing. We don't know. And this is a paragraph we picked out of the New York Times to just give you a sense of what kind of things they could be looking. Prosecutors have been asking witnesses about former president's state of mind as well as efforts to fundraise off his false claims of widespread voter fraud and whether he knew he lost. They have also been scrutinizing efforts to put together slates of so-called electors to cast ballots in support of Mr. Trump when the Electoral College tallies were certified. Heard a lot about that. Here's the deal. One, this is sort of unprecedented in that there hasn't been slates of electors that have been contemplated to just go up against somebody who had obtained a winning margin of victory in certain states. And so I don't know how you end up prosecuting all of that. I imagine this is why the indictment is going to be instructive here, because we could speculate, but I don't know. I mean, is that criminal? I don't know. Are there statutes that deal with that? Like, I don't know.
Also, there is a little bit of irony to all of this, because I certainly remember after the election in 2016, Lawrence Tribe, the professor, and a lot of these dipshits on the left were trying to mobilize a campaign for faithless electors to vote against Donald Trump, even though he had won the presidency in the Electoral College.
Yeah, is old Larry Tribe going to the brig now?
Yeah.
That's a hell of a precedent for a guy like that, huh?
Yeah. No, he's not going to the brig.
Babs Boxer. Remember, she did the 05 deal against Bush.
Oh, yeah. No, so, I mean, look, I think it's obviously unprecedented to sort of criminalize political speech and actions, right? And so, that's sort of the dangerous and unprecedented ground we're on. But, what I constantly go back to in all this stuff, and I don't think I'm alone in this, in fact, in talking to a lot of Republican voters, just so fucking tired. We're tired and we'd like to win.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the fucking drama, waiting on for the other shoe to drop and another indictment and all this stuff. And I get it. I'm sure there's a lot of things that have been unfair to Donald Trump. We've seen them firsthand.
Yeah.
But it's we got a lot of problems in this country.
Well, this is not a lose and it's okay type situation.
No, it's really not.
You've got Joe Biden in the White House actively destroying.
Can I just read Nikki Haley's statement? Because I loved this, because this is sort of where my head's at in all this. It's going to keep going. The rest of this primary election in reference to Trump is going to be about lawsuits. It's going to be about legal fees. It's going to be about judges. It's going to continue to be a further and further distraction. We can't keep dealing with all this drama. We can't keep dealing with the negativity.
Yeah,
it's tough. And I think she's 100% right, because it's like you were saying earlier. It's it hasn't hurt him in the primary, but his unfave is as high as it's been since January 6, 2021.
Yeah,
Donald Trump.
The counterpoint I would give to all of this is that I think that's the whole point. If the left and the media knows, the same way that they did with the Russia thing, that if we just keep pushing and grind it out, we can get him. And they'll throw in the towel. And then whichever Republican, if another Republican gets a nomination, we're going to do the same thing to him. You know?
I mean, look,
I don't doubt they'll try.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's a valid argument in many ways. The question is whether you have Republican candidates who are willing to give them the opportunity to do so. Look, we used to complain all the time that, if you can call Mitt Romney a misogynist and Mitt Romney some sort of a right-wing lunatic, if you can do all that.
They call Clarence Thomas a white supremacist. There's no logic or reason involved in their message, and they have the entire media pushing the same thing, the same agenda. And and the way there was no basis of fact for Russia, they just created a smear machine. So
I mean, look, I don't disagree, and I think every Republican who's running for president is be prepared to be smeared just the exact same ways. But I also think, especially for our younger viewers, you got to remember that politics didn't start with Donald Trump. I mean, when George Bush was president, they tried to impeach him every other day and twice on Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you guys can probably speak to that more than I can, because
I was there.
I
mean, you're right. That is the way that they've handled every Republican president. It's just, that's the matter of course. That's what happens. All that being said, we've never given an opportunity like the former president has given them with actual teeth, right? I mean, I would argue that New York situation is a perfect example of what you're talking about. Clearly a political prosecution. If there is any sort of crime there at all, it's certainly not something you would bring against a former president of the United States. It's just unbelievable that we're even having to discuss it. when you start dealing with classified documents, you're starting dealing with precedents for future administrations and things, and like there's some serious stuff there. And then all of a sudden you get into this, and we'll find out what it is. But when does that water get too heavy? Like at what point for a Republican voter as committed to Donald Trump as you are, do you get to a point where you're like, well, this is guaranteeing me a loss in a general election? Now, I don't think we're there yet. And some polls still suggest that Donald Trump's got a lead over Joe Biden, mostly because of the absolute anemia of Joe Biden's poll numbers. But he's clearly, with the center of the electorate, toxic. And you said his disapproval numbers are higher today than they've ever been in his public life.
Since January 6th, yeah.
So, again, as Smug rightly points out, this has, up to this point, made him stronger with a primary electorate, unquestionably. It has also unquestionably made him weaker with the center-right, center-left part of the electorate, the center-right of which you need to win a general election nationally in this country.
Also, I think what it would take for this to actually hurt Trump among primary voters is one of the people also running for the nomination
digging in,
doing something about it,
digging in.
You know, like
it can't just be Chris.
If at that first debate, you know, someone doesn't give a compelling reason of like, here's why you should support me instead of Donald Trump, whether it's over this issue or something else, like it feels like they haven't really tried to. I mean, Christie's very clearly gone on the offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's just taking a baseball bat out, which is what Chris does. He promised on the show that he was going to do that, and that's what he's done. I think the point that the statement that Nikki Haley made that you just read is closer to that spot where there are reasonable. I mean, look, I fully anticipate 30% of the Republican electorate is ride or die with Donald Trump. Like I don't think they're going anywhere.
But Haley is kind of hitting him where he's weakest. It's raising questions about his ability to win a general.
Yes.
The entire statement is not. It's not taking the bait on was he right or wrong on Jan 6 or should he be in jail for what he did or should he be indicted again. It is entirely focused on this guy is a distraction, and if we want to
God
win,
bless him. I served in his administration. Tip your cap. We got to go on without you. I mean, it's like canteen and pistol type territory, right?
Because,
you just leave him behind.
Because any pollster will tell you, and I think Donald Trump's, I think Donald Trump's pollster, you know, with maybe a couple of pops in him would probably admit it as well. But there is palpable fatigue in the electorate about just like distractions. Like there really is.
So she's tapping into something here.
The question, though, that I've always had is, do you get rewarded? Because at this point, not only do you not get rewarded, he's ended more careers of Republican politicians than he created. I mean, he's ended an enormous amount of political careers of people who have decided, I'm going to take him on this. And the base of the Republican Party comes along with him and just sort of pushes out any sort of dissenting view. And so, yes, that's the right argument, and I think that's a winning argument. The question is whether or not Nikki Haley has any residual support that comes along with that. And so far, there hasn't been evidence of it. I think that this thing's going to get, we've talked about this a lot, I think this thing is going to get a lot more dynamic than people think. This is not a static primary where everybody's monolithic in their thinking. When you're adding inputs that have never been added to the context of a primary election in this country, you're going to get some different things coming out of it. I don't know. We got debates. We got all kinds of things, but I think that all contributes.
We also have a brand new poll out of New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah. What do we got here?
Fresh evidence of this being a dynamic electorate. You have Trump. This is a UNH poll, 898 likely Republican voters.
That's a big sample. In New Hampshire, that's a really big sample.
Trump 37, DeSantis 23.
Oh, interesting. So it's close to a 14-point gap. Wasn't that like 30 points?
I think that's like 5 off Trump. DeSantis ticking up 1 or 2.
Okay.
It's not that substantial, but it is.
But you've got Tim Scott ticking up substantially, Christie ticking up. So Scott's coming in at 8, Christie at 6, Burgum 6.
Bergamentum. I told y'all.
Bergamentum.
Those gift cards must have just hit the mailbox yesterday.
Hey, man, like $19 is more than most people have given candidate or their voters.
Yeah.
But this is a very different picture than we've seen in other states where Trump has this gigantic, seemingly insurmountable lead.
Yeah.
It's very mountable.
It's a
Mountable lead.
It's a mountable lead. Well, again, I guess we're going to have to, time will tell on all of that, and we'll see. I mean, an indictment, when you get a letter, typically that doesn't mean, like, we've settled on the indictment. Like, there's still a process that goes, my understanding, is that there's a process that goes, remember, he got a letter on the previous indictment months ago.
Yeah.
And then he announced that the letter had turned into a
I wonder if
charge.
at this point, like, Mar-a-Lago's got, like, this entry for, like, deliveries, subpoenas, this one, indictments.
Well, I think
drive around, no long-term parking, just drop off the subpoena or indictment.
One dude's job is just to sit there with a little top hat.
Donald Trump Donald Trump
Thank
knows one thing, and he knows when he's the center of attention and he's the vacuum sucking up all of the media, it actually benefits him.
Yeah.
And so regardless of whether this actually becomes charges or not or whatever, him being the topic of conversation, at least in how his opponents respond to it, force him to the middle, which he benefits from.
Yeah. It would be a hell of a job to be the guy in the top hat outside the Mar-a-Lago. Hello, Jack.
It's like you're here for valet parking.
You think?
What do you have for me today?
You think he has like a velvet pillow? And he's like, place it here.
Sir, please sign first initial, last name.
Go, boy. Talk about a job I wouldn't want. Yikes. All right. You guys want some animal news?
Always.
So we talked a little bit about that, like you mentioned when we were talking about the beaver, which, by the way, we got important context from Governor Kemp, which was a sensational interview. I'm so glad he was here yesterday. The beaver came from Georgia.
Yeah.
And they had found the beaver, and it was a big rabid, like 30-something.
60
No,
pounder.
60
Yeah,
pound
he did the
beaver.
correction. Like, I think that the
He said
article we
40?
said it was 40, but
Yeah.
it was actually 60.
60-pound
Yeah.
beaver.
I had no idea. It's like bigger than a dog.
That's a big beaver.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it all in the family, the otter,
Yeah.
which I think is a relative to the beaver.
Yeah, it's the same thing. They're these like dual critters. Like they attack by land and sea. You know? So they're like twice the menace.
They're like the Army and the Navy.
Because like,
Well, and they're probably some loose relation to the mink.
because you got like these killer whales. They can only get you by water. You know, these guys are if they could
Amphibious.
fly, they'd have the triad. So that's shit.
So they have been wildlife officials search for a wayward sea otter harassing surfers and kayakers off the California coast. This is according to the AP. Associated Press put pen to paper on this bad boy. Wildlife officials were trying to capture the wayward sea otter Thursday that had been wresting surfboards away from surfers and aggressively approaching kayakers off the coast of Santa Cruz, California. The 5-year-old female otter has shown aggression towards people for several weeks, and it poses a public safety threat. Well, we could have told you that. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service said in a statement, video and photographs shared on social media show the marine mammal getting on top of different surfboards. At least one occasion biting and tearing chunks off the board and aggressively approaching surfers. So they got this team of wildlife experts. They're checking it out. And this guy says, while there have been no confirmed reports of injury due to the highly unusual behavior of this otter, kayakers, surfers, and other recreation in the area should not approach the otter or encourage otter interactions.
Yeah.
I have never encouraged an otter interaction in my life. I didn't know that's something somebody had to tell me.
They're like a sleeker beaver.
It's like it's kind of like a seal with legs, you know?
But they're smaller.
And this guy it's a complete wasted opportunity from this guy who had a quote, and he said, like, talking about no otter interactions. He was like, you otter think twice. Like, it was laid out. Why did this guy not drop that?
You know,
I think some like otter scientist would be ready at any
If this
time.
was the New York Post, that would have been in the headline.
100%.
Well, here's the thing that caught my attention. They named it Sea Otter 841. So what I'd like to know is what happened to sea otters 0 through 840? Have they just been hiding this information from us?
Yeah.
Like there are 840 otters out there that have attacked people just trying to surf.
Also, this further, it says it was born in captivity and released into the wild in
there
June
you go.
2020. So this thing, who knows? It might be like a MK Ultra kind of like a situation where the government did something and now the thing's going ham.
It's like a Jason Bourne of otters.
Yeah.
That is seriously. I mean, I feel radicalized.
It's going after surfers, so maybe they just like taught it to hate surfers to see if the program program works.
It's like it was at the Guantanamo of otters.
100%.
And then it got let go.
Like
and it's
Clockwork
back.
Orange, they have it watch like
Yeah.
surfer videos of surfers being bad.
The CIA was developing them to kill the next generation of Kennedys.
We know Robert Kennedy surfed.
That is so good. That is so good. It would be so much funnier if it wasn't like an honest part of our discourse. Right?
Coming to the next town hall near you.
You can get 1,000 people in an auditorium to bobblehead along with that one. But you know what? It's not. They're not alone. And before I turn to our next story, I just want to also thank you to the Minions for constantly keeping us updated.
Always.
on
It's
these
always
things.
appreciated. We check the account, all the replies to the Ruthless account on Twitter of like more animal attacks. People are staying on top of this. It's great. You got to be vigilant.
We have the best clip service in politics.
Oh, it's just
100%.
amazing,
Yeah.
particularly on animal news.
Right.
But as you know, and I think we flagged this very early on, and then again, the Shamu and everything else came along with it, the water is a particularly dangerous place right now.
It sure is, and actually, I'd say it's more than a clip service. They're going the next step. So they sent around a story and images and basically a target package of these giant squid that are appearing all of a sudden, emerging near the surface around Japan. And one of the things that the Minions are suggesting is that we ally ourselves with the giant squid to go after the whales.
Wow.
And I think that's the sort of outside of the box thinking that the Minions bring to the
Interesting.
program.
I think you find the moderate like octopus on the ground.
Yeah.
And
You arm
train
them. Yeah.
Well, you got to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over
100%.
here.
That's right.
That makes sense.
It's the whole, yeah. The moderates. We arm the moderates.
Arm and train them.
Arm the moderate squid.
Yeah.
But like dolphins are now going after people in Japan.
Man, what is going on?
You know what's going on. You know good and well what's going on. The animal kingdom is rising up. PETA has enabled them.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about humans.
And they've been waging war on us. It's just now time for us to wage war back on them.
This
That's
reminds
exactly right.
me.
Look at this other cute video of an animal. This is cleansing my timeline. Cute video of an animal on Twitter.
While it sharpens its blade.
Exactly. Don't turn your back for a second. They would eat you if they had the chance.
Yeah, they would. Well, it's happening all over the place. So keep your head on a swivel. I don't know if you can actually hunt otters. I don't know.
That's a good question. I
You
don't
should
think
be
you
able to
can.
hunt mink because they're in jackets.
Yeah.
Is there otter jackets?
I don't think so.
Beaver fur was the thing. Is that still? Remember, you could trade pelts back in the day.
And there'd be hats and such.
Yeah, we could. I don't know. Let's look into that. If Minions, if anybody has any ideas on what we can do to these things to stay on offense.
And I remember we had gotten this sent to us and didn't cover this, but did you guys hear about the cruise ship?
Oh yeah.
Situation. So there's a cruise ship.
Yeah, dude, this is unbelievable.
This is awesome. So it says this happened in Europe?
Faroe Islands.
Now the Faroe Islands.
In the Faroe
Yeah.
Islands. And this cruise ship pulls up, and the locals were doing the right thing. They were slaughtering a pilot whale, right?
Slaughtering hundreds of pilot
Let's just be clear. This is a cultural display. This has been a part of their society for generations. And now all of a sudden it doesn't fit with TikTok culture.
Not to mention the right thing to do.
It is. I mean,
That's how they feed themselves.
does
for
anyone
crying
have a
out loud.
story about killer whales attacking
by
Faroe
eating-
Islands people?
eating whales?
Like, the message has gone out.
Killer whales do not.
They don't fuck with the
The
Faroe Islands.
Faroese are off limits.
They know. There's only one way to send a message, and you literally fill the ocean with blood.
The Faroese are like the Mossad.
Yeah.
Right? You just don't rattle that cage unless you have
You don't
to.
mess with it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point, but it brings us to our next story. A woman is attacked by 4 dingoes.
Yeah.
Can someone describe to me what the fuck a dingo is?
Is a dingo sort of like a junior coyote?
It's
It's
like
more like a wild dog.
it's a wild dog, and they look kind of like those Shiba Inus.
Wait, so it's a wild dog, but it's not like a mutt or like a. I mean, it's just they all have the same. They look the same.
Yeah, they're kind of like
they're not like domesticated. Or
yeah.
anything.
It's essentially just like a crazy ass dog.
But they're also not on the menu at Outback Steakhouse.
Which was a mistake because now the dingoes. A woman has been flown to the hospital. This is according to ABC.net. A woman has been. Hold on.
I'm just thinking you go to Outback and ask for the Obama special, and they'll bring you a dog. Folks, he said it in his autobiography. He's eating a dog. I'm not making this up.
feared dingo. I mean, when people talk about eating dingoes, it had a wildly different connotation in this country than it does in Australia.
No rules, just rights.
You've never tasted a dingo like this one. Anyway, so do you notice this? That we've got in this document, you know how I am about McDaniel with his citations. This is abc.net.
Yeah. .au.
So is it not ABC?
I wonder if this is like...
This is the Australian.
Is it the Australian
Yep.
ABC?
Yep.
Let me
Is that
see.
what it means?
That's right. That's exactly
American
what it means.
Broadcasting Company?
I don't think
No,
it
I
is.
think it's maybe Australian Broadcasting
Yeah.
Oh,
Company.
so but they were late on the internet.
yeah,
So they got the .net
they
stuff.
didn't secure a domain. So they didn't have somebody like me.
They didn't. They didn't.
Huge mistake.
It just goes to show that's why there's crazy shit that goes around down there. They're late to the draw on the internet.
Yeah.
Anyway, a woman has been flown to the hospital after being attacked by 4 dingoes while jogging along the beach. Queensland Ambulance Service officer in charge, Hervey Bay Station. Hold on.
Of Harvey Bay. That's his. He's in charge of Harvey Bay.
What a
I thought
title.
that was his name for a second. Matthew Steer is his name. He said the 23-year-old woman ran into the water and 2 dingoes followed her.
Wow.
At about 9 a.m.
It's so wild. Another dual critter. Like, these are a menace.
This dingo is much different than your other dog. I mean, it's amphibious.
Yeah. I mean, by any means necessary, they're going to go after.
Like if you were to breed a German Shepherd with a sea otter, you get a dingo. I guess.
These are ready to go.
Yeah, he said a rescue helicopter had flown to Orchid Beach, the northeast side of the island, to pick her up, and she was flown to Hervey Bay Hospital and treated for bite wounds to her limbs and torso.
That's the thing is, if they had to like airlift her out, these dingoes were going off.
They got her.
They were like,
got her. Yeah.
And you would think by now Australia would do something about the dingoes. Like they were famous for eating people's babies, right? You know, you'd always hear
What?
about this is Australian people.
what are
this
you
was
talking
like
about?
there was a crisis for a long time of where dingoes were eating people's babies.
Oh,
It was like a way of life.
how do you? So you know about?
Yeah,
the
yeah,
dingo.
they've been
Well,
a menace
so-
for a while. That's the whole thing. Is
so
like,
he-
why doesn't Australia do anything about this?
Here's the solution.
Like they come for your firstborn
I thought
child.
that was just
Here's-
the same.
here's
It's like
the-
dingo Passover. They get your firstborn baby.
Jeez. What are you talking about?
That's the worst thing. They've put up with this. It's crazy.
I don't even know. I don't even know where I'm at.
I would look.
I was going to offer a solution for the dingoes.
I
You
think
put
there
a
is
cabbage patch. You put a cabbage patch doll on a boat. You open up the back of the boat. You usher all the dingoes in. You put the boat out to sea.
Then
The
you set it on
captain
fire?
jumks off. You scuttle the ship.
That's Viking funeral the thing. You know they'll be busy trying to kill the baby because that's instinctual for these guys.
I mean, it's clear to me that Australia is soft on dingo
100%.
because
Soft dingo.
because it says here in the article, one of the dingoes involved in the attack had a GPS collar.
Oh,
Quoted, it is an animal. that
Another
has a
born.
high risk.
Another born.
Our job is to mitigate risks through education. Lethal mitigation is a last resort.
Wow.
And so they knew this dingo was dangerous, and they're like, you know what? We'll just go ahead and put a collar on him.
let it just bite this lady.
That ought to solve it.
A decade soft dingo policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you hate to see that. I think they have medication for that kind of problem these days.
What good is the collar if you can't remotely euthanize it?
Well, that's the thing. That should be part of the process. Is like, okay, we'll let you back in the wild, but now it's like 3 strikes are out. That's done. You're out.
Did you buy but before we get to because I can't possibly in good conscience transfer from soft dingoes to a Mike Pence interview. He doesn't deserve that.
No, he certainly does
Our
not.
audience doesn't deserve that. Did you see the bread prices headline the other day that came out?
No.
There was like somehow bread prices have exceeded inflation by like a millionfold, where it's like this just gigantic bread price hike. And I was like, oh man, where have I heard about that before? And I was like,
Mayor Pete
strikes
again.
Mayor Pete and that guy, that New York Times editorial board guy that we made so much fun of.
Yeah.
He was
That
right.
guy was on it.
He was
he?
right.
He called him out on it?
He
He
called.
knew
He
it.
said, "You
He knew
fixed spread prices. You worked for a company that fixed spread prices."
That's it. And
Remember that guy?
Yeah.
the thing is that like It's hilarious how Mayor Pete is known for one thing, and that's just fucking everything up. Like, anytime a train is derailed, they're like, Mayor Pete, at it again, you know? Bread prices, he's got that on the resume, too.
Flight delayed, done.
That's him.
Flat tire on your car, thanks, Pete.
He did it again.
It does make me think that maybe they set old Pete up a little bit. Like, you know, there had been competent management of the Department of Transportation, so it basically hid or masked the fact that there are a lot of liabilities over there.
Yeah.
Basically, anytime anybody's on a highway, a freeway, rails, or in the air, your political career's on the line.
Right.
Right. And this guy's taking every shot to the face.
He was like, I was promised this is just like for me to wait out the Biden administration so I can run again.
Yeah, they're like, oh, yeah, well, fuck you with my flight delay, you bastard.
Yeah, they're like, no, you actually have a job.
Okay. All right. So I think we've done. Let's go to the former Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence.
This episode is fueled by the American Petroleum Institute. No matter your politics, no matter the debate, one thing is certain. America runs on affordable, reliable energy. America's policies must recognize that Americans benefit from making, moving, and improving the energy right here in America. Today, America's oil and natural gas industry supports nearly 11 million jobs and provides American energy to keep this nation strong. Learn how at api.org.
So the next installment of the Ruthless Presidential Showcase, fueled by America's oil and natural gas, learning more at API, is the distinguished, good friend of the program and former Vice President, Mike Pence. Thank you for coming in, sir.
Oh, you bet. Great to be back on Ruthless, guys.
Oh, man. So the last time I think
in studio.
I know.
Yeah. What a cool studio.
What do you think?
Really? You can't even tell it's your garage.
I mean, look, that's high praise from you, though, because you got your start in radio.
I did.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Was that a pretty good-looking studio that you were in back in the day?
No, it had hay growing out of it. But it was a great time, but I'll tell you, I was never as big as Ruthless.
No, I don't believe that.
You guys are tearing it up.
I don't believe that.
Great to be back on.
You were a very successful radio host back in the day. I mean,
well, I was Rush Limbaugh on decaf. You know, I was on about 20 stations all across Indiana. Came on right after Rush Limbaugh was on, and it was a great. What I learned during those years was not so much how to talk as how to listen.
Oh, interesting.
You know, you get calls from people driving on a tractor, or, sitting in their kitchen or running between rounds at work.
You learn what they're concerned about.
You do, and you also, it's a great education in the wisdom and the goodness and the patriotism of the American people.
And the great state of Indiana, as Michael likes to tell us.
Yeah, I'm a Hoosier native, so
there you go. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you. I think the last time that we sat down together was to open a beautiful new headquarters that you had.
Right.
Thank you. In D.C. that was doing an incredible lot of great work amidst a sunset and all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
So, we're not competing with that, but that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, great of you guys to be there. It really was. And the work of advancing American freedom goes on. I'm proud of our team, proud of the freedom agenda that they minted, working with more than 50 conservatives around the country, people that worked in our administration. And but I've left that behind.
You have?
On June 7th, Karen and I traveled to Iowa and announced my intention to seek the Republican nomination for President of the United States. And so we're off and running. It's here in Washington today because I'm going to be at the Christians United for Israel banquet tonight. And addressing that, but then it's off to New Hampshire for most of the rest of the week.
That's great. Well, listen, I know you're working hard.
We are.
And look, let's start with the obvious here. You're vice president to President Trump. Obviously, you're a student of politics. You're as astute as anyone I know in terms of polling and application of polling and the ups and downs. You know the challenges of trying to run for a nomination with a former president on the ballot, with all the name ID and the previous commitments that he brings into it with all of that. And yet you decided this was important. You had to do it.
Yeah.
Give us your rationale.
Well, I just think different times call for different leadership. Yeah. I'm incredibly proud of the Trump-Pence administration's record. I really am. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some people in this primary have taken to criticizing aspects of the record. They have every right to do that. I just don't. I mean, I was always loyal to President Trump. I'm proud of what we did to rebuild our military, to revive our economy, to secure our border, to appoint 3 of the conservatives to the Supreme Court of the United States that gave America a new beginning for life, and have been part of a new dynamic conservative majority. But you know, at the end of the day, things didn't end like I hoped they would.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, the loyalty to the president had to give way to my loyalty to the Constitution of the United States. But we parted ways, but that's not why I'm running.
Yeah.
You know, I'm running because I really think that both my former running mate and others are beginning to lead our party in a direction different than what drew me to the Republican Party. You know, I was drawn here because I believe America's the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
That we're the arsenal of democracy. That we defend our freedom by promoting freedom around the world as well. I believe in fiscal responsibility and reform, and believe in the sanctity of life. And on each of those issues, whether it's America's role in the world, whether it be fiscal responsibility, whether it even be the right to life, I see my former running mate and others beginning to shy away from those core Republican issues. And as my wife and I reflected on it, we just determined that we'd step in this race and offer my lifetime of commitment to the conservative movement, to Republican primary voters, and we're getting a great response.
Yeah, well, look, for those of us who've known you before your vice presidential experience, when you were a governor and a member of Congress, obviously a conservative through and through. In fact, you were sort of a troublemaker back in the day.
I was, actually. Yeah.
I mean, I was
battling against big spenders in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I was a leader of House conservatives and a bit of a thorn in the flesh of the Bush administration that you might remember.
I do recall.
I fought against the Wall Street bailout, Medicare prescription.
Is it weird to go from that, Mr. Vice President, to people calling you a rhino?
Yeah, I mean, how do
you handle that?
I used to remember when rhino meant you voted like a Democrat.
Right.
I mean, I think I probably have pound for pound the most conservative record of anybody in this field.
Right.
And but I think that's look, we got a real healthy debate about the future of the Republican Party.
Is it attitudinal? Is that what it is?
Or tone?
Is it tone? Is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of it is. Look, we're facing a debt crisis in this country, guys. Mm-hmm. You all are a lot younger than me. I'm now a grandfather of 3 beautiful granddaughters. Actually, the 3 most beautiful granddaughters ever born in the history of the world. And I just am not willing to walk by on the other side of the road on a national debt the size of our nation's economy, which is about to go from $32 trillion to $150 trillion in 20 years.
Yeah.
And yet Joe Biden's policy is insolvency. And frankly, the former president's policy is identical. He says we're not even going to talk about entitlement.
Let me ask you about that, because that's the thing that's sort of jarring for me. And I imagine it was for you, too, because you served in an administration that at its core at least spoke to the issue of fiscal responsibility.
Right.
And historically, certainly in your tenure, you got one party that just sort of throws out any sort of fiscal responsibility whatsoever. They don't care. And they've made it quite clear they don't care.
Right.
And we've had one party that struggles, but at times does the right thing to try to rein in at least the argument to a point where people understand what a problem it might be. You hear the first big argument out of the former president and the governor of Florida about who's going to preserve and protect Medicare and Social Security. I'm like, well, what party do we go to actually be concerned about these things?
Well, this is what I'm talking about. It's you know, I'm not running for president to be an echo. I'm running for president to give people a choice. I mean, because I think a majority of Republican voters want to stay on the path that we've been on in the past 50 years, which has included a path of fiscal responsibility and reform. And look, under our administration, I'm proud we rebuilt our military after years of budget cuts. I believe that the reason you have government is when a crisis like the COVID pandemic strikes, you've got to have the ability to provide resources to families and businesses and institutions to see the country through. But candidly, we didn't do as good a job as we should have on controlling domestic spending. But all of that's in the past. The reality is, as you know better than most Americans, that we all know where the problem is in the national government. It's that 70% of our federal budget today is Social Security and Medicare. And I think there's plenty of room to bring about reforms for Americans under the age of 40.
Right.
Look, you can say, and nobody here does, but if you have hair the same color as mine, this is irrelevant to you, right? You can literally say to people, look, if you're retired now,
yeah, don't worry about it.
You can listen, but it doesn't affect you. If you're going to retire in 25 years or less, it doesn't really apply to you either. But if you're under the age of 40, we actually think we'd like to bring about some reforms in the system that I think would result in you getting a better deal.
Yeah, or any deal, for that matter.
Okay,
that's the alternative.
Most people in your generation don't think you're going to get anything from Social Security, and I understand that. But the flip side, I think you could make some changes in benefits for people under the age of 40 and then let people contribute a portion of their payroll tax into a personal savings account that we tried to do 15 years ago.
Yeah, I remember it well. We still have the scars.
And if I do too. I was head first without a helmet on that one. It's like, yes. I mean, look, if you let somebody take a portion of their payroll tax and put it in, if it made 2%, Social Security gives you a 1% return, guys. I'm just doing the math here for the ruthless listeners. You literally could take, and this is my term now, but then you can steal it and claim it was your idea. Is
perfect. We love that here.
I say you take these New Deal programs and give people a better deal in the 21st century, and that's what we're out there talking about.
So let me ask you this: if you're sworn in as president of the United States in January of 2025, is spending the first thing you tackle, or would it be the border or energy, or what's your list of priorities as president?
Boy, I think having been there, having been in the room when we assembled a cabinet and put together a team, I think it's more of what's the category of priorities, right? And I think the category of priorities begins with getting the economy moving again, which will require us to be serious about controlling spending and bringing about reforms. It means ending the crime wave in our major cities. It means securing our border, and I think that's got to be job one. There's nothing more important ever than providing for the common defense. But I think recognizing the failure of the Biden administration at home and abroad begins with let's get America moving again, get America growing and strong again, and then we're going to be better equipped to meet the challenges that we're facing around the world.
It's a fascinating answer for a lot of reasons, because you do have the on-the-job training. I mean, there's not a lot of people who have been in the room when all these decisions were being made in a previous administration. And you've seen, obviously, you would have done some things differently. I mean, you probably wouldn't be running for president if you didn't want to do things differently. But now that you've seen all of it, with the benefit of retrospect, I mean, do you think that there are things that you could have done better or more aggressively to secure the border that just weren't done in the previous administration?
Well, I think so. Look, we finally found a way to repurpose federal dollars to build the wall. And we built a good portion of the wall. But I negotiated the Remain in Mexico deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge deal.
With Mexico. It reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. We could have done that sooner.
Yeah.
I mean, we were literally, we had our Homeland Security people and our State Department people working with Mexico, and then we finally just sat them down and said, here's what it's going to take, guys. And either that or you're going to start seeing some tariffs and you're going to start seeing some consequences. And I sat down with the Mexicans. We figured that out. But it was team ball. I give the president all the credit in the world. He made it clear that we were not going to tolerate
clearly
the
a high
situation
priority.
anymore. It was. But look, I just think... I'm proud of that record. It's part of me that I'm not really a rearview mirror guy.
Yeah.
I'm proud of what we did for the country. America had seen 7 million jobs created, wages rising at their fastest pace in more than a decade, secure border, conservatives on our course. We'd rebuilt the military. The world was at peace because we'd showed a demonstrated willingness to lean in and stand with our allies and stand up to our enemies. And that's why when I see people, particularly on the foreign stage in our party, beginning to recoil from support for the Ukrainian fight against the Russian invasion, to me, that's more a reflection of a lack of confidence in the current commander-in-chief.
Yeah, well, it seems like that. I mean, look,
no, I believe it is.
For those of us who've been in government for a long time, you can see the Conservative Party much more aggressive in foreign policy when we have a leader of our own party. And get this weird sort of libertarian piece of it that just sort of begins to have a greater share of voice than ultimately resides in the base of our party anytime there's somebody you don't trust. In this case, Joe Biden, clearly. I say that to say...
Biden has done a terrible job explaining why we are providing military support to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Period, paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, he gives these gauzy speeches about democracy in the world, and for heaven's sakes, it sounds like he's doing one more.
As if we're fixated on everybody's
one more speech
rights
against the MAGA people in America or something. Without, I mean, it's not. We're there, I believe, because if Russia runs over Ukraine, it will not be long before they cross a border where our armed forces are going to have to go and fight.
Yeah.
And maybe I feel particularly visceral about this because my son's a captain in the Marine Corps. My son-in-law is a lieutenant in the Navy. I mean, this is not hypothetical for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if Putin takes over Ukraine, I think it would not be long before he reached into another country that this time was a NATO ally, and that we have to go and fight. So I'm a guy that believes in what was called the Reagan Doctrine back in the day, which is you're willing to fight our enemies on your soil with your troops. We'll give you what you need to fight them and defeat them there so we don't have to meet them somewhere else. That's our national interest. But have you ever heard Joe Biden explain that to anybody?
Not
once. It to me, and that's why following the disastrous and unconscionable withdrawal from Afghanistan, why even some Republicans that otherwise understand that we're the leader of the free world, we're the arsenal democracy, are having their doubts about what we're doing there.
Yeah,
I get it.
Real quick, I want to ask, what was it like for you to watch that happen in September of Joe Biden's first year, the way that he shamefully pulled his country out of Afghanistan?
I got to be honest with you and tell you, I traveled to either theater of war 10 years in a row when I was in the Congress. I traveled to Afghanistan when I was governor, and I traveled to Afghanistan when I was vice president. And to see the way President Biden botched this withdrawal on one decision after another, it was heartbreaking and infuriating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was both emotions for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was angered by it. But when I thought of how it dishonored the sacrifices of men and women who'd fought and sacrificed, and many had died to defend our freedom in a country where the worst attack on American soil in history was launched from, it was unbelievable. And Humberto Lopez is a Marine from Logansport, Indiana. He was one of the 13 we lost that day at the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the series of bad decisions, guys. Think about it for a second. First, our plan was that we said to the Taliban, you got to work with the Afghan government, okay? You aren't going to harm any Americans, and you can't harbor terrorists. And we basically made it clear. I was in the room when Secretary Pompeo was on the phone with the Taliban guy, and President Trump said to him, look, you break this deal, we're going to hit you harder than we ever hit you before. Mm-hmm. And they knew it. 18 months, there was not one American casualty in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that was the deal. That was the deal. Right?
Yeah, everybody brushes past that. We had measured success in that time period.
18 months, not one American casualty.
And the way the Biden administration tried to pass it off as, oh, no, this is the previous administration, as if the contract was that we're going to make a complete mess and cause a loss of life.
Biggest whitewash I ever saw is what came out of the Pentagon.
Yeah, wasn't that unbelievable?
A couple of weeks ago. It was both No, it wasn't. Okay. In our game plan, here's another stupid decision. Okay. I'm just going to put a fine point on it because, it's not like anybody else is listening. But here's the thing. We said, okay, so you move out in the spring. Okay. People don't think this way. But the spring is before the fighting season.
Right.
So all of a sudden, Biden's team announces, you know what, we're going to pick September 11th to pull out.
Yeah, totally political day.
Meaning and deeply offensive.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
deeply offensive to the American public. So it's also at the end of the fighting season. It means all of the warlords, Taliban's got all their troops fully armed, locked and loaded. You move in the spring, the snow hasn't even thawed yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
nobody's on the field, right? Mm-hmm. So they make that horrible decision. But this idea of abandoning the Bagram Air Base and then going to the Kabul airport. But I started to tell you about Humberto. So Humberto Sanchez was a United States Marine, Logansport, Indiana. When we lost him, when he came home, Karen and I, as Marine Corps parents, we drove up to Logansport just to sit in the back of the church. And his mom heard we were coming. She asked if she could meet with us, and we spent some time with her. And she ended up asking us to be a small part of the service, which we were profoundly honored to do. But here's a guy, Humberto. It's a great story. So Humberto, he doesn't get his diploma on graduation day from Logansport High School because he had a little bit of trouble. Okay,
we're familiar.
Okay, right. You all are. Okay, you
this
probably
guy in
all.
particular, but
he didn't get to, none of you got to walk the stage. Okay, so he doesn't get to walk the stage. A little bit of trouble. He has to go to summer school. He finishes up. Okay, so, but he ends up working like a year or so. His mom tells me, and then she walked into her kitchen one day, and he looked at his mom, age 19, and said, "Mom, I want to make you proud. I'm going to go be a Marine."
Oh, man.
And by all the account of the Marines that were there at that funeral, every single one of them told me that Humberto was a Marine's Marine.
Yeah.
Not only, respected, but loved by everybody in his unit, and proven in the last moments of his life, because he's at one of the gates. Radio call comes out that tells all the Marines, pull back, go inside the wire, because they saw somebody. Now we heard about it recently, that somebody was headed in that they thought could be a suicide bomber. Humberto refused to leave the gate because he radioed back that most of the people in his line were women and children. And he said, I got to get him through. And his mom says to me, his last act on earth was a work of heart.
Yeah. Boy, that hits.
I mean, so you want to ask me how I feel about what happened in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
I'm telling you what, and it's right under the surface. Nobody's talking about it. But I think even as you said, the wavering support among even some strong American leadership Republicans.
Yeah.
I think is as much a reflection of that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan and a profound lack of confidence in Joe Biden as our commander-in-chief.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, no question about it. Thank you for doing that. And listen, it shouldn't go unsaid. There are profoundly good humans who have done this job for the United States. You are amongst them, sir, who understand greatly what that sacrifice is. And you get the feeling, in both political parties now, you sort of blow through the role that our men and women in uniform are playing on a day-to-day basis. And it's become political.
Yeah, we
one
don't.
way or another. This is never. You obviously have a deep family commitment.
My dad was a combat veteran.
Right.
Came back from Korea, threw the medals in the drawer, never talked about it, like most of the guys that have seen combat.
Yeah.
This look, and I'll tell you what. You ever worry about the future of the country? Just go visit a military base.
Yeah.
You'll be. I mean, the men and women in our armed forces today are the new greatest generation.
Yeah.
And we owe them better than we're giving them. And I want to tell you, the other thing is, we have a military today that can defend our nation. We do not have a military fitted to the widening challenges of the 21st century.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why we have to be willing to lead on common sense entitlement reforms is we've got to have the resources to not rebuild our military, but to build a military fitted to the second half of the 21st century. We've got to have the kind of Navy that can defend our interests in the Asia Pacific, keep China in its lane, and otherwise be prepared for the widening challenges around the world. Look, that withdrawal from Afghanistan emboldened the enemies of freedom.
Clearly.
And now wars raging in Eastern Europe. China continues its provocations, but peace comes through strength.
Are you troubled at all in that our discourse? I mean, we just talked about how there used to be two parties that sort of believe two different things as it pertains to all of these sort of things. But look, you're on the campaign trail. You're meeting with people all day, every day who have very real concerns, the likes of which you just laid out, who are talking about kitchen table issues, who are talking about defense. Their family member may or may not be in the military. And then you get this primary debate that is just sort of like laughable on its face in terms of the niche, sort of bizarre application to the everyday American life. and you have to somehow sort of engage in this, despite the fact that none of this is sort of your view, but you got to entertain the questions, as you had to last weekend. Like, is that just depressing? I mean, I don't know. How do you react to all of that?
I love it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because it gives you a chance to fight back, or what?
No, I love it. Look, this country belongs to the American people. I'd love to get out. People said to me, well, but some people in the party don't agree with you on those things. I said, well, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's have the debate.
That invigorates you.
I'm into leadership, not followership, right? And there's too much followership that I see going on, and people are looking at. I don't even have a pollster in my campaign. Do you know one? I don't. Are there any pollsters in Washington? Are there any pollsters that were right in 2016? No, I don't even have a pollster. I haven't done a single focus group.
Short's inbox, by the way, is filling up as we speak.
Right.
It's not that I don't look. Those are useful processes. People get a sense of where the public are. But the point is, I'm not going to change.
Yeah.
I'm who I am. I'm a conservative. I'm not in a bad mood about it. I'm going to talk about real things in this campaign. I'm going to be honest with the American people about the challenges we're facing in the world, challenges we face in home. But I'm also going to tell them that we can fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can honestly tell you, I know one of you guys at the table knows exactly what's going to happen in the next 18 months. And I'm going to need to talk to you after. I don't know what's going to happen, but what compelled my wife and I to step forward was a deep conviction, with all humility, that after 12 years in the Congress and being a leader in Congress, after 4 years as governor of a successful state, and as 4 years of vice president in a consequential administration, I would know what to do and who to do it with on day one to get the country turned around.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't take that long.
Yeah.
And I remind people, I'm going to do a bunch of town hall meetings this week in New Hampshire, and I got to tell you, I always remind people, when you're choosing your standard bearer, remember, you got to have somebody that has a shot at winning the Senate.
Right.
And can widen that majority in the House, and can assemble a team.
Yeah.
And a cabinet.
Yes.
That will have the ability to really move the country forward.
Yeah.
And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just saying I know I could.
Yeah.
I ran the transition in 2016. I assembled that cabinet. I love what Bill Bennett said to me one time, former education secretary for Reagan. He walked up to me and he said, you know, some people tell me this is the most conservative cabinet since Ronald Reagan. And he said, I tell them I was on that cabinet. This is a way more conservative cabinet than Reagan had. He said Reagan was like the most conservative person on his cabinet. He had a great cabinet, and I would tell you that's what drives me, because I do think the country's in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I couldn't sit this one out.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know, knowing that if you put those priorities in place, if you just went, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you built a team, execute, this country would come roaring back, and the world would get a lot quieter.
Yeah.
Quicker than you think.
No question. Is it tough to distill down? Because, I mean, look, you talked about how you assembled this transition team and cabinet secretaries, and now you were in the room with every consequential decision, whether it's energy based or whether it's foreign policy or, you know, taxes or judges, right? Knowing all that, is it tough to distill down to a bumper sticker in a campaign what you do? I mean, I imagine running through your head right now is like 8 million things that you do in the first 10 days differently and more effectively based on what you learned. Is that tough to distill down to the context of a campaign when you're talking to an everyday voter? Are they all? No?
No, it's not. Look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. We just simply need to offer a compelling vision based on the proven principles that have defined the Republican Party for the last 50 years. Mm-hmm. And I believe we will win in a landslide. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now, you know, it's a little bit of feels like a little rope-a-dope in the polls, that because people see a rematch coming on. And they're not real sure, and they're not. Good heavens!
Turns out they're not totally stoked about that.
Come on. About 4 years of Joe, people say to me, they go, what about unity in the Republican Party? How are you going to bring the party together if you're the nominee? And I said, I got two things going for me if I'm the nominee. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they're going to be the greatest unifying force in the history of the Republican Party, because everybody's going to go, good heavens, we can't have 4 more years of that. I mean, I thought they'd be bad. I didn't know they'd be this bad.
I mean, you have to give her some credit.
Yeah.
No one knew the job was
No,
that
look.
difficult until she showed up.
No, look, I look at her poll numbers and it makes me blush when I think of mine. Look, it's a tough job. I really have a hard time being overly critical of her because I can't even imagine.
Well, you did have
what you
nouns,
did.
adjectives, and verbs all in the right place.
Arranged in normal sentences.
Arranged in a
Yeah,
sentence.
I did. But I know where the buck stops in the building.
Yeah.
I do.
Right.
It's one of the things that, one of the fun things about being on the campaign trail is that I think I'm well known.
Yeah.
But I'm not known well.
Interesting.
So, like, people, other than that one time I was on Ruthless, nobody ever knew I had a sense of humor. It's like people come up to my guys after town halls and go, "He's got like a sense of humor."
Yeah, he's funny.
And they said, "Oh no, he cuts up all the time." I mean, but look, I had a very clear idea. You and I talked at the time. You understand. I never thought it was about me when I was vice president.
No question.
Never. Never did a profile interview for 4 years.
Yeah.
Got called to do them all the time. Hey, we'll do a nice spread in the magazine. Hey, we'll do something on TV, talk about you, your wife, your dog, your kids. No.
Right.
Wasn't about me. I'm somebody who believed that a vice president of the United States is there to be informed, to be prepared if history calls, to be of service, and to take 2 steps back. Because there's only one president, and I had no other view. And so the fun thing is people in Indiana know us.
Yeah.
And some people in the conservative movement know us. But around the country, it's been really fun for me.
I bet.
People have got to know, I didn't know you had a personality.
Well, you show up in a leather jacket in Iowa, and everybody's like, "Who the hell's that?"
Well, candidly, it was a vest. It was a Harley Davidson vest.
It was.
That I got from the Freedom Riders.
Yeah.
It was great. And it was so funny because one of my favorite, you occasionally, I know it's hard to believe, but sometimes the internet doesn't get things right. And this one guy went off on this photo op of Pence sitting on a Harley Davidson trying to make people think he rides motorcycles, and he blasted it out because I was sitting there talking to the press sitting on a Harley. And about an hour later, people said, I don't like Pence at all, but he did ride.
That you got to give it.
Nothing else. But he was on the motorcycle for an hour and a half.
On that genre, did you get a kick out of at all the going around the internet of some poor sap that was not Mike Pence getting pelted by a water balloon saying Mike Pence?
I felt bad for the guy. But let's be honest, that was a heck of a throw.
It was. Had to lead him.
I literally headed to the airport in Iowa Friday, and I thought we made a little news Friday afternoon.
Yeah,
got a little attention, and but sure enough, I take a look at my phone, and water balloon.
She had a hose. She just crushed that guy in the back of the head. Some poor accountant.
I don't even know what happened there. But I mean, it's just classic. And it's all part and parcel of what comes with the territory. But that's been the fun part is being out and about because
you live with this stuff. I mean, you loved it. You love being out with people.
Well, I don't like politics, but I love the American people.
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell people that in all my years of service, my opinion of the federal government has gone down. But every single day, my opinion of the American people has gone up. I mean, this is, don't get me started. I mean, the thing when you're a vice president or a governor, when the wind blows, the tornadoes hit, when you're vice president, the hurricanes come and the floods come, you get there, right? And to see the generosity of the people of this, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, when a hurricane blows through East Texas, the next day in the neighborhoods that were impacted, the only thing you can't find is a parking space. Because people come from everywhere.
Yeah.
And they load up their trunks and their minivans full of water and food and tools, and they show up and just help people rebuild their lives that they've never met before and never going to see again. Like I said, those soldiers that I've met all along the way. And it's a great country. I just like to say we just need government as good as our people.
We do. Yeah. There's no question about that. Let me ask you this, and this is my.
And part of that is tone. Can I say that to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah. No, I really.
And what do you mean by that specifically?
Well, look, maybe it's because I moved home to Indiana 2 years ago. I mean,
you're surrounded by some nice
listeners
people.
and viewers. I'm just visiting Washington. I don't live. We moved home. We got 5 acres and a pond. Riding mower, the whole thing. Ford Ranger pickup truck, and
couple stories in the house, which is, according to Smug, is amongst the biggest structures in
Okay. All right. So I need your help. I need your help, Mr. Vice President.
What happened?
Well, because
many people say that Indianapolis, the tallest structure is like 2 stories.
It's absurd. Okay, so we've done a live show in Minnesota, where he's from.
Right.
We have an upcoming live show in Iowa. We go to the Midwest and we do these shows. I need your help to sell Indianapolis as a location for a live show for the Ruthless podcast.
Oh my gosh!
What do you like to eat? Where do you like to go?
Okay.
I try to tell them and they laugh at me.
Okay, Lucas Oil Stadium,
Yes.
The restaurant district, the Salesforce Tower. Get over it. Schedule it.
Yes.
Look. So the Super Bowl came to Indianapolis in February of 2012, and honestly, they might deny it because they have contracts. The NBC guys that were all there said, man, if we could do the Super Bowl in Indianapolis every year, we'd do it here.
Is that right?
It's incredible because it's a very walkable downtown.
Okay. Okay, we're not going to do the Chamber of Commerce.
I'm just trying to tell you.
Yes. There's Future Farmers of America come to Indianapolis. It's great for conventions.
Oh, it's very big.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
just have to get.
We could accommodate the tens of thousands that would come to watch Ruthless being broadcast live.
Thank you.
From Lucas Oil Stadium.
You heard it. You heard it from the Vice President.
No, I was starting to say, look, I like to tell people, maybe it's because I moved home, but you get 15 miles out of Washington, D.C., the people in this country actually get along pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, families with different views in politics actually get along pretty well, figure it out.
Yeah.
But so I'm not convinced the American people are as divided as our politics.
Yeah.
But a lot of it just begins with the way you deal with it. I'm somebody that believes you can disagree without being disagreeable. Through my years in the Congress, I took very strong stands. I did when I was governor. I did when I was vice president. But this town. I was able to maintain a rapport with people on the other side of the ideological divide, and it made it possible to actually do things when it was possible to do them. If you are at loggerheads, and a lot of people like to blame my former running mate for that. Look, it was here a long time before he got here.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that the debate in Washington, D.C. is eroded. And I think people want to see us restore a threshold of civility in public life. And that's one of my aspirations as well, because we got some really big challenges at home and abroad.
Yeah, well, along those lines, this will be my last question, but along those lines, obviously your plan here is to be the nominee and be the next president of the United States. If the polls shut down tomorrow and Donald Trump's got a big lead, if he's renominated, A, do you think he can win? But B, to your point about restoring civility and all of that, and maybe what the American people are looking for all along, is that consistent with the party competing nationally? Is his candidacy or his nomination consistent with that?
Well, I'm glad the polls aren't closing tomorrow. That's right. That's all I can tell you.
The guy's good. I tried. I tried my best.
Look, I wouldn't be running if I didn't think that we needed better choices.
Yeah.
Than my former running mate. I've said many times, though, look, I don't think anybody could have defeated Hillary Clinton in 2016 other than Donald Trump. And I didn't know that to begin with. I endorsed Ted Cruz in the primary in Indiana. And in all fairness, he won all 3 counties I campaigned with him in. And Donald Trump won the other 89.
It wasn't until he showed up with that Carly Fiorina that you ran into problems, right? Remember that?
I'm just telling you. I think it's a different time out there, and I honestly think some of the president's durable support right now is more a reflection of how alarmed people are at the catastrophic failure of the Biden administration. I really do. I think you get a phone call in the kitchen that says who you voting for president, it's not Biden.
Yeah.
So in terms of the everyday American, they go, okay, well, the Trump-Pence years were better.
Yeah.
Let's go there. But I think once those debates start next month, and people start to see that there are other men and women on the stage.
And you're going to be on this stage.
Who are ready to lead. Well, we're working every day. I would tell folks on Ruthless, we'd love to have you kick in.
How do they do it?
If you give $1, go to MikePence2024.com, donate $1, and you'll do your part to help make sure that we're on the stage. We've had thousands and thousands of people step up. And it's been very humbling, but we're not there yet, but I'm confident we'll be on that debate stage.
Well, listen, former vice president, you will not find a more decent person in anywhere in politics, regardless of your ideology. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Hey, great to be on Ruthless, guys. I look forward to coming back to the garage soon.
This episode is fueled by the American Petroleum Institute. No matter your politics, no matter the debate, one thing is certain. America runs on affordable, reliable energy. America's policies must recognize that Americans benefit from making, moving, and improving the energy right here in America. Today, America's oil and natural gas industry supports nearly 11 million jobs and provides American energy to keep this nation strong. Learn how at api.org.
You know, it's always refreshing to have another Midwesterner on the program.
Yeah, well, he is. And you even challenged him on his city. Smug.
Yeah, I mean, he spoke very well of Indianapolis. I now know from Duncan, it's got a very walkable, downtown area, which is great. Again,
don't patronize me.
I said at the opening, but I think it's incredible the story he told about one of our Marines who lost their life due to the Biden administration's inept pullout from Afghanistan. I think that's an issue that has fallen to the wayside. It's not brought up when it was this administration, for political reasons, rushing this withdrawal. Lives were lost. They said that they killed the terrorists responsible, and it was a van full of kids that they blew up. There's been no response for the terrorists who did this to us, and there's been no culpability for the administration that did this either.
And you can tell the pain on his face.
And when he spoke to it, it was it was phenomenal.
I think one of the things that we, not to toot our own horn, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a blow. I think one of the things we do better here with these interviews with candidates is you get a better sense of who they are and why they're running, right? It's not about the gotcha question, because everybody's got an answer to all these things, and some are better than others. And so, we get to all the issues that matter. But the most important part is when you walk away from it, you know who the person is and why you could or could not vote for them. Mm-hmm. And with Pence, what came through to me was, he was talking about he doesn't have a pollster. He didn't want to denigrate anything about the Trump administration that he served in. He's running because he really just thinks it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And this is a genuine guy. For whatever you think about Mike Pence, whether he's your cup of tea or not, he is 100% sincere. I talked to a friend the other day who was like, he's the one guy in the entire field you'd leave with your kids. Mm-hmm. And I think that's right. His whole point in doing this is because he thinks he can help his country, and he's in the right position to do so. Now we'll see whether or not he gets the amount of donations to get to a debate stage, whether he can garner support and get a big enough platform where people can see him as something other than Donald Trump's vice president, who Donald Trump doesn't like anymore, which is sort of the prism that he's viewed through for the moment. But you can't doubt the guy's sincerity. And that's what I think came through here more than anything else. I think it's what's come through in all of our interviews. When we talked to Chris, you knew what he was going to do 3 months before he did it. Like, he told us exactly what kind of campaign he was going to run. Nikki Haley, I think very, very similarly in that regard. So anyway, I love the interview. We're going to keep doing them. We've got more this week. As I said, we're going to have a bunch of really exciting things, including Iowa on tap here in the near future. So exciting times for the little program, The Good.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to.
You bet. I think we did it.
Absolute banger of an episode, if I may say so myself. Thanks again to Vice President Mike Pence. Thank you to the listeners. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.